is anxiety?
I never heard of anxiety.
What is depression?
I don't know what depression is. Is that a game?
Yeah, all right. We will, I guess, start things off with this, our second attempt at this episode here of With Your Buddy. My name is Buddy Jayson, and with me today is...
Dan.
Yeah, so my guest today is Dan here, and this is our second time recording this because for some reason the first time the audio on Dan's side didn't really get picked up, so I was kind of just having a one-sided conversation, which kind of sucks. It was a great conversation to have, but yeah, we're back at it for round 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, so with my buddy series, I always pick a topic that I kind of want to talk to an individual friend about and sort of get their experience and opinions on things. And the last series we did with Dan here was about mental health, so I thought I'd continue on with that sort of path of questioning. And what I want to talk about today is coping with stress and self-medication. Yeah, so I guess I'll go a little bit into my personal experience with this. Self-medication here is, growing up, my father was an immigrant into Canada, so he worked very, very hard to try and provide, I guess, a level of quality of life for my brothers and me, and because of that, he was working, like, non-stop, 6 in the morning to like 8 at night every day, running his own restaurant and whatnot, and he would always come home at the end of the day like stressed, tired, and the way he would relax was with a couple of beers. Growing up around that, when I got to that sort of point in time where I was maybe working or studying at school or something like that, and I got stressed, I would follow his example, and I would grab a couple of beers and drink. And it wasn't until probably a couple of years ago that I sort of dawned onto me the amount that I was drinking. I would come home from work or something like that, have a couple of beers with dinner, then relax a bit and go to bed. But that'd be like three beers a night for, we'll say, 6 nighs, and then on on a Friday or Saturday or something, I'd go out with you guys here and grab a couple of more there, and I'd be sitting around 25, 26 beers a night, and it dawned onto me that this was sort of my crutch in coping with stress and how unhealthy it was.
Like it was something that you finally kind of came to and realized that, like, you can't keep it up. It can't be something that like you can constantly use because it's ultimately that unhealthy.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, the fact you recognized it.
Yeah,
Right?
and it was like 24 to 26 beers a week. Like that to me seemed an astonishing amount. And I'm not saying I'm an alcoholic. Like I would say back then I had drinking problems, but I didn't need to have alcohol to get me started. It was always a way to just stress and tone down.
Mm-hmm. Whereas like it never became something where it's like it's true. Whereas I view, especially an alcoholic, I view someone who like needs it to function.
Yeah.
Right. It's something where it's like you can't. And I can get that, right.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get sort of your experience on self-medication, and I have some follow-up questions for that. So I guess do you want to explain your experience?
Sure. Um, like I've explained it before on this podcast, and the one thing for me that's been evident is that I have an incredibly addictive personality. So anything I usually pick up, whether it be a positive or a negative, I'll take in an extreme. I usually am quite obsessive. So if it's like working out, if it's playing a video game, if it's food, or if it's anything, or even like a beverage, a drug, anything, I will use it in excess. And I think one of the reasons about that is I didn't realize until longer is, and I'm not again blaming it entirely on mental illness. I think that's just as you are as a person. But for me, the biggest thing for drugs is that they made me feel like I could do, like things weren't so dull to me anymore. Like when I drank, my original problem was with drinking quite heavily. I didn't smoke until a little bit later on, and I still smoke to this day, and it's still something I'm working on. But of course, right? It's a ongoing it's an ongoing struggle. But the biggest thing I found with alcohol and weed is that it took all the negative, took all the no fun, nothing meant anything to you that depression had, and it went, okay, hey, you can enjoy games again, you can enjoy talking to friends, you can enjoy going out, only only if you are drunk, right? That's kind of the only way it works. So naturally, I think I leaned heavily into it because I don't know. I think anyone understands that that's the number one thing you want to do whenever you are feeling those feelings is you go, well, you know what? I don't want to feel this way. I'm going to do anything to not do it. So of course you lean into it, and for me, I leaned quite heavily. And so when it came to alcohol, the one moment when it kind of really kicked into me that I think I was going overboard is when I realized, you know what, I am. My parents left for the weekend, and I think they went to the cabin, and I had a pack of Budweiser, and and again, I every time I go to remember it, it's genuinely like a bit like foggy. I remember being about an 18 to a 24 pack. It's one of those two, but I just remember, and I drank in essentially the afternoon or like the early, I would say probably like 11 to about like evening. I drank all of them, and it didn't even feel like anything to me. Like I could have done way more. And that was a moment where I'm like, if I drank this much and it was nothing, like I didn't even notice, right? It was kind of a shock to me. I'm like, then that really means that this has become such a normal to me that even this amount is considered normal. Like it's nothing that even I scoff at. And that scared me because I know I have a family, and I think a lot of people do. But I have an uncle and a family history of people being alcoholics. And naturally that terrified me. And I'm like, in my how I am normally and how my like this can affect people around me and my family. I'm like, I I think this is a sign. So I took that and I just completely stopped drinking. And it actually coincided that that was also a time when I went in to check with my doctor about how I was feeling mentally. Like this is before I knew about my depression. This is just when I thought I was kind of just a shitty person. And so after I figured that out, and with my doctor, I would say with the antidepressants, you cannot drink with them because if you do drink with them, you really pay the price
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of those things where you can get hungover, but with antidepressants and with depression in general, it makes it so you are like decrepit, like your mood and everything is so far off. It's just you can't accomplish anything. Your mood is down. You feel like normally like shit, like you would hungover, but like you get to the point of like damn near, like almost like damn near suicidal over it. So I'm like, okay, clearly I can't get drunk anymore. That's something I can't do, and also it's a problem. So from those two things, I'm like, you know what? I need to figure out an alternative. And unfortunately for me, of course, my alternative was immediate was a drug, and I had started smoking weed heavily. It was the good thing. I guess the good thing about it is due to that at least I was able to quit. I was able to quit drinking relatively easier because I had something else I could do. But then at the same time, it's kind of like you're trading one vice for another, right? It's still a vice. It's maybe less of a severe vice because you don't have to get that affected by it, but it's still a vice.
Yeah.
And so I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, if I could ever like cut both like everything out, I would just be perfect. And I'm still working on that. But to this day, I still smoke. I don't drink really. I drink every once in a while, but I don't have nearly as much of a problem with it. And I think the thing about it is that changed for me is that when I started thinking about drinking, like before when I drank and when I smoked, I would always think of it as a way out, right? As an escape. I can do this to hide from it, to
Yeah.
run from it. And the thing about that was nice is because I would hide from it and run from it, I would be safe from those feelings for a little bit until they came back, and they always came back worse, right? Because now you feel guilty about being a pig and a sloth and whatever else you've done, or like an alcoholic or like a stoner. And I remember feeling terrible. I'm like, you know what? This is something that maybe I should start to almost restructure, in the sense that it's something I use it as an escape. Clearly, I can't be using this as an escape because I'm using it too often and I can't maintain it. I'm like, if I can add something else to it, I can maybe I can lessen it. I can rework it into being less of down, or less of escape and more of a reward for doing something well. So instead of being an alcoholic and drinking all the time because you have to, you can wean yourself off, almost be like, okay, I won't drink during the week, but during the weekend, if I've had a good week and I haven't cheated, I'll allow myself Friday to have some beers or something. I'm not sure if that's actually good advice for alcoholics, but in general, that was the way I kind of went to rephrase it. And so what I started doing is I went, you know what, I'm going to refrain. I'm going to try my best, and especially help with antidepressants at the time and not drinking. But I'm like, I'm going to try to do my best to become a decent student and to try at least get a job again and not be such a deadbeat. And I
Yeah.
did, and I was, every time I did something successful, I rewarded myself, and I changed the whole mindset around it. Whereas I needed to lean on it, right? Normally, I would need to lean on it to completely forget. But now I only lean on it when I reward myself. So it's not or I don't need to lean on it. I mean, it's a reward, not a crutch.
Yeah.
So I think rephrasing it or rethinking it, and getting alternatives to that kind of healing is huge, because then you can change, and you can, I don't know, I just think that's just such a nice thing that you can take something that's controlled your life in such a negative way and change it into a positive.
And it's that idea of reshaping what you were originally using it for, an escape, sort of escapism kind of mentality, to something a bit better and more productive. Because I was in the, I would say I was I was in a similar boat with you, where it's like, yeah, you wanna run away from the stress, you wanna run away from the depression, the anxiety, the awful feelings that you don't want to deal with. And that's sort of how I took alcohol. Was that, I don't want to deal with this now. I don't feel like confronting my feelings and whatnot. So I would just drink to de-stress and go to bed and, not worry about it. But I find that whenever I did that, just like you had mentioned there, is that those feelings just kind of just hid in the corners of my mind here, and just would just continually build up, and at some point they would just get worse. And I think that's something that I'm still learning and to deal with and whatnot, because as an adult, we can't always run away from situations in life. We have to confront them. It's fine to sort of postpone them every so often, but you still have to get to them eventually. And I think that's a lot. There's a lot to say in that about emotional maturity, and being able to assess your feelings and confront them. Because I think,
I know.
yeah, one of the things that back then I really didn't like to do was feel my feelings, acknowledge them, I don't know, would you say that as a guy that you were kind of
Yeah.
brought up to be a little more like this macho man, kind of you don't feel sad, you don't feel angry, you just sort of get through everything?
Oh, 100%. And that was always the case. And I think a lot of guys and exactly you said, because it always was the case where it was, don't show, don't feel, you're a man, be a man, right? And it's an unfortunate attitude, because obviously it lends itself to unhealthy, because then you bottle up emotions and then deal with mental illness later in life, or some other kind of, some trauma or stress. And I feel like that's one of those things where I think exactly like you said, where you kind of face it, and it's nice because normally, and and it's totally true, where alcohol and drugs, they help you run, they help you hide, they help you kind of like alleviate it for a moment. But if you don't get to the heart of the problem, it's still there. It's still gonna be there, right? Like it's one of those things where I think that when you face it, when you're sober, right, you face it, and when you face it, you get better at it, and you can learn to come at it in a more healthy way. Whereas before, like if I get rocked in something, right, whether it be school or life or relationships, whatever, my natural instinct was to isolate, and I still do to an extent, and isolate and kind of hate myself for a while. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I know what those feelings are. I know what they're from. I
And
know
you
I don't
learn.
like them. Yeah, like I learn. I'm like, I know I don't like them, but I know how I can do better next time, or I know how I can, kind of like get over it a bit quicker, stuff like that. And I just think that it's nice that once you remove the fog that substance abuse has, you're able to really kind of come after that. And once you deal with the heart of the problem, it makes it that much better, where you don't need those things to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, and like being able to confront those emotions and actually feel them. I find that once you get that experience, when you later on down the road feel those feelings again, you have a solid foundation to address whatever the source of the problem is. Whereas when I was drinking, it'd be like, okay, I feel real shitty. What I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna go grab a couple of beers and call it a night. And that was always just that was always my go-to solution to the problem, and that never resolved the problem. So I never really sort of learned and grew from the situation. Whereas now I'm confronting the problem, I'm acknowledging how I feel, and it gives me, I guess, a better emotional stability in tackling any sort of stress or the depression or anxiety that comes later on in life.
No, I don't know. I just think it's nice that we can learn from it, right? And we can grow from it. And exactly like you said, like it prepares you later, right? So now when you're confronted with this, right, and you're gonna get it again, you're gonna have some sort of failing and some sort of low when you naturally want to lean to something. But now you've gone through it so many times, you're so prepared to deal with it. And I think that's the lovely thing, is like later in life you're gonna need it, and there's gonna be worse things probably, right? You probably haven't
Yeah.
even reached the worst of it, but I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where if you can learn from it, it's not a mistake, or it's not like it's not really a mistake. It's a learning opportunity. But if you don't learn from it, then that's kind of on you. Like it's unfortunate and it's mean to say, but you have to get to a point where if there's something in your life where it's so negatively affecting you, you have to want to change, right? You have to want to be better, or want to try to do something different. Whereas I feel like with both me and you, we want to be better, right? You want to try to do better every day. I'm not saying everybody doesn't. There's probably a lot of people who are addicts and who are struggling, and they don't want to be that way. But that's just the way they are at the moment. But they won't always be that way, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll change down the line, but maybe they're just going to take longer, right? Whereas that's kind of one thing where I'm getting around to, is that everyone has different paths, right? Everyone has different speeds. One person's speed isn't going to be the same as the others, or one person's way of learning isn't going to be the same as the others.
Yeah.
So I think that's one
And
thing. And sorry, I cut
no,
you off.
go ahead, Ben.
Well, what I was leading into that actually, quite frankly, is this year, and what I've kind of come to deal with. And I remember because this year I'm going back to school, and it's a big deal for me because it's been a while since I've been in anything like that, and for me to actually want to try at something, I'm quite a lazy individual, so that's something for me. It shows at least that I'm trying, like I'm growing a bit, which I'm happy about. I want to do better, and so that's one of those things where now with that, I'm proud of it, but I've been struggling. And there's one class, actually not completely struggling. There's only one class I've really been sucking at, it's one of the classes where it's a huge part of my class, and it's a programming. And I unfortunately this year I had a class, and I struggled very bad on the midterm. I had a near fail, and then I immediately went, well, what do I do now? I got a tutor. I looked into getting counseling and trying to like handle mental, because the midterm put me low, because I thought, I'm like, oh God, maybe I can't do this, and the normal doubts come in. And then I did as much as I could, and and unfortunately, even at the end of it, I finished that semester about 4 or 5, oh no, sorry, 6 weeks ago.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I failed that one class. And naturally, my instinct was to isolate, go to bed, ignore people, smoke, eat some bad food, play games, like anything, right, to distract myself. And I went to go lay down to go have a nap. That was my first instinct. But the thing is, that was nice is I've been there so many times where I went, you know what, I know what I'm gonna do, right? I know what I'm about. Like I'm gonna do this, right? And then I'm gonna try to feel better, but realistically, it won't change anything. It'll just make me feel worse because I know I've wasted my time and I've napped, and stuff like that. But now that I've dealt with it so long, I came around to it, and I went, you know what? No, I know what this will do for me. It'll do nothing. It won't help me, right? It won't help me at all. It'll just hinder me. So I thought, I'm like, okay, let's just deal with it. Let's accept it. It's a failure, right? And yeah, it sucks. But you know what? I'm like, I can retake it. I can do it again. It's not the only time I can take it. I'm like, there's options for me. So through through being sober, and normally I would have been stoned out of my tree and everything, right? And through being sober, I had to face that, and I faced it like I faced other things, and I've gotten better at now dealing with them. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I was really leading into something there.
I don't know.
But yeah,
That situation, because you came into the group of friends that we have here while we were playing video games. And you explained the entire situation about it, and I think the fact that you decided to deviate from what you typically do, because you've learned that that's not the proper way to handle your feelings. You went and you acknowledged your feelings, you expressed them to the group of us here, and we were all. I mean, I made an awful joke about it, but we all sort of banded together, and we were like, yeah, no, Dan, you did fantastic. All the effort you put in was great. It was very admirable. Honestly, because of everything that you went through with your school, I think I have a bit more ambition to go through my program with a little more focus and excitement. But after all the jokes and whatnot, I found that the whole gang was very empathetic to your situation. And I remember friends would reach out and be like, no, you're gonna do great next time, you're gonna nail it. You got the basics done. It was just the little finer details that you need to polish up or whatnot. And even our buddy Connor was like, well, if you can take the course over the summer, he'd be happy to take it with you too. And I thought, if you would have gone and just taken the easy way out, the self-medication, got stoned out of your mind and just slept in your basement, you wouldn't have been able to sort of receive all that I guess, like, support from your friends and family. And I think that's one of the important things is to have that kind of support. Because I remember I talked to my brothers and my cousins and stuff like that about my drinking problems, and they would mention, like, yeah, no, we've seen this kind of thing with you here and there. We were a little bit concerned, and they were super happy that I eventually acknowledged that I have a drinking problem, and
yeah,
that I wanted to take steps to be better than that. And I think, yeah, having that support is fantastic. I wanted to ask you, what was your, I guess, experience in, speaking to your parents or your siblings about, some of your issues.
oh yeah. Well, first off, I think that's nice for you. Like, again, I think it's brave to come out, right, and be like, yeah, this is what I do, right? Or I've had a failure, I've had this, and because it's brave, right? Because it's naturally, I think, an inclination for a lot of people is to hide those feelings from people, right? But I don't want them to know I'm a fuck up, or I'm a failure, or I'm a and this or that. But to make yourself vulnerable, and like you said earlier with the group of friends, I think to open up with that, I guess, to answer your question, like with the group of friends, that's the one thing I found that was really nice about it. Is I'm like, you know what? No one was like, yeah, don't be wrong. Yeah, you made a fucking zinger off the bat. But that's the thing that was lovely about it. That's what comedy does, right? And I think that's just like a male trait I find is that naturally you make fun of your friends. That's how you know who's your friends. Because you're not really willing to make fun of people who aren't your friends, because that means you're not comfortable around them, right? Like the real friends will poke the shit at you, and I think that it opens the floor because then once you laugh at it and it's out there, right? You naturally everyone kind of goes, okay, it's out there, and then they end up usually, like you said, they end up siding with people because after that everyone was very very kind about it, right? Especially that was everyone of my friends were very kind, but my family was incredibly kind as well. Like when I opened up to them, I essentially said, I'm like, you know what? I was telling, like, they knew I was struggling in this class, and I was telling them, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try my best, and I did. And I'm like, I told them when I failed, and I told them how I felt, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take today and maybe just do what I want to do. They're like, yeah, of course, and they were very supportive. And then the day after, they even talked to like I talked to all of them, and we all came to the understanding where it's what again, it's something where it sucks, it doesn't feel good, but I can at least hold my head held high, knowing I tried my best, right? And I gave it everything I could, which is rare for me because that's naturally what I shy away from is hard work. I go off. I'd rather take the short way or the easy way. And so for something like that, my family was incredibly supportive. That made me feel wonderful. And again, with you guys, felt incredibly supportive, and that was lovely because you think you're like, okay, they know what my failure is, and they're not thinking it's a big deal. They're making fun of it, or they're telling me it's okay, and they're offering me support and help. And I think that's one of those things where I don't know, it's nice about it. So it obviously is about who you're around because you could be around some shitty friends who I think you can make fun of it, but there's probably a few people who would go overboard, right, and just pepper you or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which could be like there's a difference between making a joke and or doing it out of malice, right? Where I could see is that would be a serious like great kind of moment. It's like I'm glad I told them that. So it depends on who you're around, but with my family and friends, I found nothing but support. So I think that was lovely because it's a huge part of if you're gonna ever get better at something. I think it's a huge part.
Yeah, it's a huge part to have sort of the community or the people around you to give you that support because, it is when we have other people to talk to, I think more options open up to us because reflecting on everything that I've gone through there, I did find that the isolation really affected how I sort of turned to alcohol for self-medication. If I wasn't speaking to my friends or family about it, I would be sitting at home by myself and drinking alone. And I think when I was doing that, I just sort of got into my head, and it was a bit of like an echo chamber. All the bad thoughts that I was thinking just got amplified more and more and more. And, if I was maybe hanging out with friends or something like that, I'd be able to vocalize that, and they'd tell me, hey, none of this is actually a problem. You're just in your head.
Yeah, like this is all you. Whereas it exactly you said, it takes it out of an area where you're like, right? You can trust yourself to a point, but there's a point where your mind is a bit of a jerk, and it will naturally think the worst of yourself, right? And it will think of other people. You'll forgive other people sometimes a lot way easier than yourself, or maybe vice versa. But I assume it's usually you're way harder on yourself. So you take it out of that context, and you're right, and you bring it around people like that, and you go, am I really like this? And they'll either tell you yes or no. Maybe you are, right? Maybe it is as bad as you think. And they go, well, it is, but we can deal with it. Maybe they come around like that. Or it isn't. And they go, no, like this is this, right? And they can explain it to you without your own mind going, no, it's the worst. You're the worst. You've done the worst. You can never recover from this.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things my cousin told me is that nobody thinks about you more than you. So when I was, sitting in the basement alone drinking or something like that, I think that was sort of the time that all the negative thoughts I had about myself, kept multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And that drove me more to wanting to not face the problems and address them. So, I would just drink until I, was tired, and then I'd go off to bed and wake up in the morning to get to the new day or something like that. Like it was just like I was calling it quits for the day, and like I'm done, that's it, and then wake up the next morning to deal with that, and it was a very unhealthy way of addressing all of those problems there, and I think now, hopefully, I'm with the help of my friends and stuff like that, I'm trying to find more productive ways to deal with the stress, anxiety, depression, and whatnot. I've been picking up a few more hobbies, drawing. We do this podcast every week, and I'm learning to edit the videos together and stuff like that. And I think those are sort of healthier options to deal with stress, deal with depression, deal with anxiety.
I think that's true. I think that's a way better way to deal with it, right? Because then you're not constantly sitting there going, well, and because the biggest thing about it, right, is after those moments, right, is that's when you hate yourself even more. So you go, great, look at what I've done now. And I just think that the way you deal with it, exactly like you said, is just, I don't know, I just think it changes everything, and it makes it so when you hit these hurdles, when you hit these tough times, it makes it easier and easier every time.
Yeah, and it's like we all have these revelations. It's like, yeah, you're having a stressful day or whatever.
Yeah.
You sit down on the couch to, devour a family-sized bag of Doritos or something like that while watching Netflix, and then, you turn off the TV, and there you are staring back at your own reflection, just covered in Cheeto dust, and you're like, what am I? What have I become? And hopefully it's those moments that motivate you to find something different to deal with the stress. Exercise. Go take a walk around the park. Around the block or something like that. I find just being able to go outside of those spaces that give you stress help me de-stress a lot. So if it's like problems at work, leave work. Problems at home, go take a walk.
Take yourself out of that environment.
Take yourself out of that environment, because I find that if I'm stressed or something like that, if I'm stressed from work or something like that, and I take all those feelings home, I'm stressed out at home, and then what's the easiest way to de-stress at home? Grab a couple of beers and there you go. Right now it's like, okay, I'm stressed from work. I'm at home, so I'm stressed out at home. I'm going to go take a 30-minute walk around the block in the neighborhood or something like that, and just listen to some music or something. And it's so much better to do than
right, because you feel better after too.
You feel better. You get the fresh air, a little bit of exercise, and I don't feel like I've wasted the time.
Exactly. It's been something where it's like, what, this is a productive, and it was a productive day, right? Because it's something that you've done that's positive, right? What's the negative? There's no negatives around it at all. It's just a positive. Whereas naturally, when it comes to substances, you're like, yeah, there's a positive, but there's also a negative. There's always a negative.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I just think it's for something like that too, and also to take the steps though to get to a point where you can go, you know what, I want to do this, right? Because I feel like for a lot of people it's super hard to even get to that, right? To be like, oh, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna get out of the house, right? Because I've had times where I'm like, I feel like shit, and I know I should get out of the house, but I don't, right? Because you're just like, I can't. But when you do, and just like you said, when you do, the second you get out of that environment, you're like, okay, I can kind of think rationally, and I'm not in that heated kind of, I don't know, not even heated, but like that mindset, that area where I feel like it's so much more negative, and it's so much easier to get caught up in that. Like, I don't know. So every time I think about it, I think it's a slippery slope, because it can make you feel better, but only for a short time. And then when you get to the point like you are, and at least, like both of us are, or at least trying to be, right, is you start to put these in these healthy things, and then slowly you kind of make yourself into like a kind of functional person, right? Because I think a lot of people deal with stress. I think a lot of people deal with substances and how to get through stress without being abusive or without needing something like that, right? And so I think that when everyone kind of gets to a point where they go, okay, what's my thing? What's the thing that can get me through that isn't destructive? Like, is it a hobby? Is it exercise? Is it, a combination? Is it therapy? Is it whatever it is, right? I think that once everyone finds that one thing, they can cling to it, and they can from there kind of become again like a functional person, because you're going to deal with a lot of strife in life, right? A lot of struggle. You'll have a lot of great times, but you'll have struggle. So I think that getting that stuff down is so critical. Because I can't imagine that ever never like not being a great thing to have, right? Is resilience and the ability to take on these kind of threats.
Yeah. Now, I turned to alcohol because it was very prevalent in sort of my growing up as a kid there, because my dad would drink a lot. I'm quite surprised that I didn't turn to cigarettes as well, because my dad is also a heavy smoker at the time there, and. I guess those two, cigarettes and alcohol, being so prevalent in my childhood, I guess that's what I turned to when I sort of hit my young adulthood and was dealing with stress and finding ways to cope with it. Did you find that? Do you find that alcohol was prevalent in your growing up, and that's sort of why you turned to it?
Not necessarily. Like my parents would drink wine like at dinner. My dad had a few nights where like if his friend was in town, he'd go out and have like a few, no doubt. But like never to a point where I would always see them drunk or something like that. It was never like a point where I'm like, oh god, oh they're drunk again. Or like it was not even like they're drunk again, but like it became normal. Wine became normal like at dinner. That's totally normal to me, right? I think that's like fine.
Yeah, like have
But
a glass of wine or like a beer or something like that.
yeah, and I think that like I never really saw my dad entirely. I saw him a few times when he came home. Like again, it's not frequent. It'd be like once every 3 months or something. His friend would come to town, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, sure, go out to like the station house and have a few with them," right? And I saw that, but that was I never know if I was necessarily influenced by that as much as I was influenced by more or less the people I was around, because at the time, especially when it came to my depression, I was in nursing, and I was with like a group of young people, like a group of young people in university, and right, essentially the peak, like, oh, we're gonna go out party, drink,
Yeah,
everything.
people in
So
their
that was
early
so normal.
20s. Yeah.
Right, people in their early 20s. That's so normal. It's like, hey, we're gonna do that. I didn't realize until after that I had the problem with the restriction part of it, whereas some people could go out and drink for a night. It became something to me where I went, well, that worked for drinking, like having fun. Maybe it'd work for other stuff I don't have fun with anymore, right? Like stuff like that. So I just think it's I don't know, it's something more or less not necessarily my family, but the people I was around. I think like the groups of friends I was
Mhm.
around, and not to say that again that any of them like a few of them definitely had, I would say, an alcoholic problem. Like and I'll never name names like that, but for that is for damn sure. But in general, it was mainly just the fact that everyone around me was doing it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll drink because I want to be cool and it's fun, right? Like drinking is fun. It's something that you can do, but some people have, like myself, right, have problems with that and have problems with the restriction part, and just have to kind of come to the acceptance that okay, that's something I struggle with, right? Maybe I just stay away from that, or I learn other like again, like we were talking, other techniques to get around it or to deal with it in healthier ways or to reframe it into a healthier mindset.
Okay. Okay. Now, what about like weed? Like, how did you sort of come to rely on that?
Oh, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, but essentially my thing was weed was a replacement for alcohol. Weed was introduced to me by essentially a combination. It was my friends. I think my friend wanted to, and then I did it once. No, I didn't actually. No, my first time was with my ex-girlfriend, I think, because ex-girlfriend had done it. She's told me she could help because my other friend wanted to do it. She wasn't the one that wanted to necessarily do it, but she was like the one who actually had. So she was the one who came and like kind of taught us how to like roll it in a paper and stuff like that. And essentially, since I tried it, then I got that was the opus kind of thing. Like you get pretty much the highest you've ever gotten because you've never done it before. The first time I didn't feel it. The second time, I think it was a little bit later on, and it was with friends again. I believe. I don't know if no, it's friends and girlfriend again. And the feeling it made me was because I've been feeling down for a while, even after like I was in a bit of like I had a bit of ecstasy after after girlfriend, because of course, right? Your honeymoon phase, everything's awesome. So I think that masked it. But what really kind of I think tore me down is that like through nursing and through going out, you put on a mask so much it starts to slowly break you down. So what I noticed is with weed, it took a lot of the negativity in my head. Like, cause I didn't realize it at first, but I was getting negative a lot, like internal, and I was in my head a lot, and more than I probably should have. Like it's almost like I was half paying attention to a lot of people because I was in my own head, and like I kind of only have the brain capacity for like one conversation, maybe. And anyway, so we took that stupid voice away or those thoughts away, and it just let me enjoy stuff. How good these chips were, or how stupid this movie is, or how nice the fan feels, and all that kind of stuff, right? And it chilled me out. It made those thoughts go away. And same as alcohol, but the thing with weed that I loved is that there's no hangover. There's no real, like the only side effects you have a bit of a cough. That's kind of the one thing. Really, that's about the only side effect. Other than that, there was really nothing, and I loved it. I'm like, this is sweet. This is something I can kind of do, and I'm not like loopy. I'm not all over the place. I can control myself, and yet I can still clearly, I don't know what word I'm trying to think. I'm tongue tied, but it allowed me to completely be in the moment. I was in the moment. I wasn't thinking about what the people thought of me. I wasn't thinking about all these stupid things. I was just enjoying myself. And I'd be like, oh, I'm just out or I'm watching a movie. This is a great movie. These are great chips. Yeah, like all that kind of stuff, right? Just in the moment, and help me keep me out of that stupid headspace where you're constantly thinking about stupid crap, and you're took out of everything, right? And it's almost like you're kind of half in everything. So weed was something for me, and that's I think what really drew me to it, especially after alcohol, because alcohol did that too in a different way. Alcohol made it kind of loopy, and your inhibitions were gone. Weed, your inhibitions are still there. They're just dulled. They're not, you're not always thinking about it. You're just kind of thinking about it, not really. And then, yeah, no, so that's immediately I think what drew me to weed.
Okay.
Like, what about for like at least for yourself? I know you said I know your dad, but was it people around you as well for alcohol, or what was it like about alcohol? Because I know you said necessarily it helped like pretty much like you drink alcohol, go to bed, like it probably like helped like null you.
Yeah,
But like
so
specific
in the sense that it was originally the reliance on it sort of grew out of this idea of me sort of idolizing my father, right? My dad was this very like hardworking type of person. That was the type of person I wanted to be when I grew up, right? Someone who could provide for their family, puts in their day of work, and can feel really accomplished about it by the end of the day because he's providing for his family. But when I went and tried and did that, yeah, it was a toll both physically and mentally to put in like long hours and yeah, it was just like okay, this is a new situation for me, right? I'm working really really hard and whatnot. Like I just need to relax, or like I just want to not feel tired or burnt out anymore. And the immediate thought in my head was like, well, how did my dad deal with this? You'd have a couple of beers, have a shower, and call it a night, and get up in the next morning to do it all over again. I'm like, okay, because that was sort of imprinted in my mind as a kid. That's what I turned to, and that's what it was like for a while. And then being in my early 20s or so, you get influenced by everyone around you around the same age that's like, oh, we're gonna go, we're going out to the bar Friday night, Saturday night, every weekend. And it got to a point where it's like there wasn't a weekend where I wasn't drinking.
Mm-hmm. It was just a constant.
Yeah, and that when you get out of university and you get more adult things or whatever, people grow apart or whatever, and it slowed down a bit. But I guess the the habits sort of really entrench themselves in and around that age there, and kind of continued on until, again, I said a couple of years ago, where I realized where I'm having 24 to 26 beers a week, and it's like, that's got to stop. That's
probably that might be a problem.
Yeah.
Just
that
might be a problem.
That might be a little tiny bit of a problem there. And I am thankful that I wasn't the type of person that needed alcohol to sustain myself or to get going in the mornings, because that would have been even a steeper hill to climb, and get myself out of there. And yeah, I think it's everything that we've sort of touched upon here is we're reframing everything, and it's drinking is a problem for me, and I have toned it back down, but it's more I've sort of retrained my mind in that it's not a substance to help distract me or de-stress me or something like that. It's to enjoy. I will have one of those artisanal craft beers or something like that at dinner, and have a pint of that or something like that. It's there to reward myself and to enjoy, as opposed to help me get through rough patches.
Yeah, where it's something where you don't need it. You use it just to reward yourself for doing the things you should be doing already.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I think it's a wonderful thing to have, because now you can take this negative, right, and truly to take a negative and turn it into a positive. Take it and because normally I think that's the thing that can be so overwhelming. Is how you look at some of that stuff and go, well, how am I supposed to do better, right? I can't. It is what it is, but you can if you rephrase it, or not rephrase it. That sounds like you're
reframe it.
Reframe it, yeah, reframe it. So that's a good way to put it. So I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where you can do it. You have to have a mindset to want to do it. That's a very big part, I feel like, of course. And if you really want to, I think that it's totally possible, right? I think that something like that is totally doable. You can be better. You can try to all that kind of stuff. And I just think it's nice if you want to. If you don't, then I don't know. Then that's kind of up to you, right? Maybe at one point down the line you will, and you just don't want to right now, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, just to give everyone time. Everyone is in their own, but if you want to get better, you can get better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's one thing. So yeah, sorry,
you do it. You do it for yourself. You do it for the people around you. You do it out of love, and that's I think one thing that I do want to say is that no matter how dark and alone you feel, and you have to turn to these substances sometimes to get away, there is always someone out there who cares about you and who loves you, and you got to be better for them.
Exactly. Or better for them, better for yourself. But some people actually I know genuinely rely, and they'll be like, "I'm the only reason I haven't killed myself is because my family," or something of that ilk, right? And I totally get that. And at the same time, but if you can find and want to do it for you, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're at a point where you're like, I don't need. What's the best way? I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. But essentially, I'm losing myself. Sorry.
It's all right.
I think I've clearly been talking about it for too long. But no, it's just one of those things where if you want to do better, you can. If you're at that point, if you're not at that point, you'll get there. Try to rely on your family and friends. They can really help, right? They can really be a support for you. You can reframe it with them, with doctor, with therapy, with whatever you need. And you can reframe it, and you can grow from it, and you can be a better person.
Yeah.
You just have to actually want to be a better person, right? That's kind of the kicker. If you want to be, you can. Just got to put in a little bit of effort, and then the other people can help you along a lot of the way, or a lot of the you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, we're getting close to an hour here, Danny. So I want to thank you, and we're gonna call it here, for joining me on this episode of With My Buddy, talking about substance abuse and reliance, and how we got over it. I really do enjoy these one-on-one conversations that I have with my friends, and I think it's been fantastic. I think the first series there, your video on mental health and whatnot was probably our most viewed video or podcast there. So I guess congrats on that, and thanks for joining me.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that's it for the episode. I guess we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
What is anxiety?
I never heard of anxiety.
What is depression?